And we're live. Welcome to the Curiosity and Command podcast supported by Kaizen Summit. In each episode, we sit down with thoughtful people to explore leadership, discipline, growth, and the ideas that shape how we live and work. Today, I'm joined by Mr. Ben Gilmore. Benjamin, how the devil are you?
Benjamin, we're all right. We're all right, mate. Ticking along very nicely. Things are moving in the right direction, and that's all we can ask for.
I should add some context to this. So this is round 2 because we had some connectivity issues earlier. So fingers crossed we're not going to drop out halfway through our podcast. But if we do, we'll work with what we've got, my friend.
Amen to that.
So to kick us off then, could you just give us some wave top views of where you came from and how we've got here today, please?
Absolutely, sir. So originally from up in sunny Manchester, relatively normal childhood, schooling, all the rest of it. Kind of felt like I was destined to do something further afield from where I was. And at 18, decided the army was the place for me. So joined the army, still serving, 19 years of service now. Over 2 different cap badges. I'm a father of 3 children, 12, 10 and 2. So press the reset button there. That comes with its challenges. I am a hobbyist within jiu-jitsu and all things physical, let's call it. A little bit of teaching, a little bit of coaching. And I think that probably sums me up in 30 seconds.
Let's double click then on what first led you into service. Was this a calling? Was it a spur of the moment?
No, it wasn't a spur of the moment. I am the first person in my family to join the services, so there wasn't an inspiration of that at all. But I do remember thinking that I always thought I want to really be proud of what it is that I do, and it seems to be a very adult question. What do you do? And I always thought I really want to be proud of what my answer is when that comes out. And for several years, I didn't know what that was going to be. And then the more I sort of thought about it, I think firstly, my physical attributes lent itself towards something that was predominantly outdoorsy and demanded a certain skill set from a physical perspective. And I thought that I had the aptitude and almost the common sense really to do well in the forces. So that's kind of what first brought me through the door of the careers office at that time.
Okay, so obviously you're 19 years into it. How has your time in service shaped your identity then, if that's always been like one of the key aspects that you wanted to be and focus on?
The army, particularly when you first join, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle. You have to live and breathe it, and you have to embrace what it is. And you certainly can't fight against the system because you're not going to win. And I did that, and I'm so thankful that I did that. And it shapes who you are, because effectively you become a man in this organization and spend the majority of your young into middle adulthood in an organization which is regimented in its approach. And for me, that does. It shapes how you are outside of that working environment. And when you first join, it's very much all give, no take. And there does become a point where it kind of levels out. And I think over the past few years, I'm in that position now where I can call it more of a job than a lifestyle. However, and even most recently, the phone can go and I'm going to have to be somewhere. And that's okay. I accept that. So I think it puts you in a place where you embrace routine, you embrace a method to your working day. And I think that you apply that outside, and you can apply that to how you are as a father and how you are as a practitioner in any sport. And it gives you that foundation level of all things that sort of come good from my life.
So why did you choose Power Reg, and then fast forward to moving cap badges, going into the PT Corps? What was your kind of thought process of how do I kill off this identity and then become a new?
So in my transition between the two, in what may be considered a relatively short time in the Parachute Regiment, although I did do 10 years, I crammed in so much in that 10 years of operational tours, of overseas exercises, of really arduous and demanding things that I felt I ticked the boxes that I needed to tick. Like I was satisfied, and it's not often that I'm very satisfied, or that I can say I've done a good job and I've done what I needed to do. That kind of doesn't ring true in many other areas of my life. Actually, when I really think about that, but I was at a place where I'm like, I'm content with what I've done. I've ticked it all off, and I've really done a good job, and I'm proud of what I've done. Then looked, I tried to sort of have a bit of a future plan and thought, do I think I can do this for another 10 years at the tempo that I'm currently working at? And the answer was no. So I went into my sort of second strand of passion, which was physical training, which was mentoring and coaching and development of other people, and thought that that would see me through to a full army career, which was, what I'm on the path to doing now, and not too far of completing.
So how has your journey then through that, let's like click on that coaching, mentor and that leadership bit, how has that transition from your early days of the Parachute Regiment and then picking up your rank and then more responsibilities and that kind of thing? How has that been shaped?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I think there's so many paths I could answer this question on, but I'm just going to go with the first one that comes into my mind, and then we can perhaps go down others, if you wish to. I don't know why this has come up. I've got an idea why it's come about, but I've always been seen as a leader. Other people view me as this natural leader or this natural presence in a room. I think it's because of my stature. I'm just a tall human being. And I think with that comes an element of just physical presence. And if you have a physical presence, then perhaps people are more inclined to listen to you, or they're more inclined to take on board your opinion. That's always been the case with me. Even as a very, very junior soldier, I was given levels of responsibility over other people, my peers, that far outweighed my time in the army, far outweighed my knowledge at that time. So I've kind of picked it up on the way by being thrust into that environment of you lead, people will listen to you. Okay, okay. And I took that with a huge sense of pride and responsibility, because at that time, in my earlier days in the Parachute Regiment, we were at war. So my responsibility at times was to keep my fellow soldiers, my friends, keep them alive, whether that would be a route into somewhere, or whatever it may be. So that sense of weight of responsibility put on teenage shoulders is huge. And I've carried that forward through the rest of my army career in being a volunteer to lead. And I've really taken on the responsibility then of developing others to be able to lead. And what I think my experiences have shaped into being a mentor, and how it is that I can try and get the best out of people with no secondary benefit to myself, but just to benefit those people so that they can be better equipped should they find themselves in a situation which is uncomfortable in whatever scenario that may be. And that's all relevant to the individual. Over the years, sorry, go on, please.
Have you ever considered the characteristics, behaviours of what makes a leader? Like you said there, that you were kind of like thrown into it and then had to learn by sink or swim, for want of a better term. So it sounds like a lot of your leadership was then just adaptation based.
Absolutely, it was adaptation based. 100%. At the start, that's exactly what it was. And it was just trying to have a sense of not letting people down was my first port of call. And I think now what it comes down to is that actually I have a lot of humility. Like, I'm not afraid to fail in front of other people. And that's been a real massive learning curve for me, because that was actually a huge fear of mine years ago, was letting people down, or people seeing that I may not be able to achieve a task which they thought I could. So a sense of humility now in my leadership, I think gets me, should I say, a long way. Being able to show what good looks like. So not just telling someone what I think they should do, showing them how I think it could be done, and giving them a variety of options of how it may suit their leadership style, and effectively take the best of what you can from me and apply it how you wish to apply it that suits you. And I think the combinations of even just those two basic strands really bring people on board with you. If they see that you're just a human being that can make mistakes, but you're willing to try in front of others, I think that gets you halfway there already. That backed up with, I have got a lot of experience in my 19 years of service, and just because of the age that we are and the environment that we were thrust into at that time when we first joined, which we probably didn't know a great deal about until our feet were on the ground, means that our acceleration and our learning curve was so steep at that time that we've probably been able to, our adaptation to so many different scenarios and our ability now to interact with different people on a variety of different situations allow us to be calm in these situations, probably because of the extreme nature of our service for the first decade. It makes you a little bit unflappable now, really. It's kind of like, I can do that. I'm confident, and I can bring you with me on that as well.
Yeah, that like calm under chaos is a very sought after skill set to have, and I think you're right. It probably does only come from exposure and that exposure of intensity. I just want to double click on something you mentioned there about you overcame that like fear of failure, because that was something that bothered you early on.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that? What was your solution?
My solution was realizing that you can't do it all on your own, and there almost has to be an element of saying, actually, I probably can't cope as well as you think I can, and having that ego check of just going, look, I know you think this of me, but that pressure you're now putting on me is so heavy over the years. I have to tell you that I just can't. I just can't cope with all of that piling on. It's, you're just constantly filling the cup. And my inability for the first 10, 12 years of my career of just saying yes all the time probably just weighed me down to a point where I was like, I can't work anymore. I can't do it. So I wouldn't call it breakdown, but I would definitely just say almost like an epiphany of going, actually, I need to say no. I need to say that I can't do it. I need to have the ability to show that effectively that I'm human, that I can't do everything all of the time. And just being able to do that, it sounds so strange, but opened so many doors emotionally in my own mind that it then me, if we use the analogy of filling the cup, it almost gave me like another cup. It was like, oh my God, I've got the capacity to now know that it's okay to fail and okay to ask for help, was such a weight off me in its initial verbalization of it and communication that it just allowed me to almost continue as I was, which almost sounds counterintuitive, but the lack of fear of failure just took the edge off for me. I think there was something in that for me, at least.
Was that self-imposed fear? Self-imposed pressure, sorry. Is that where
massively?
That came from?
Massively.
Was it external that you would internalize?
I think it's the expectation that other people put on you, which you then bring upon yourself and probably make 10 times heavier. Ultimately, most of the time, and unless it's a life or death situation, excuse my French, no one really gives a fuck other than you. No one cares as much as you do. Let's not skip too far forward or whatever else or change the subject, but just to give it a different version. I like to, whatever I do, I like to do to the extreme, and I like to compete just to see where I'm at. It's not an ego thing. It's like just to see, is my training paying off? And you step on the mats in jiu-jitsu, no one cares if you win a medal. No one cares. But you care, stepping on the mats. And as I think what I've been able to do is realize myself, when I take that pressure off and realize that actually people are there to support you and not to catch you out in the most part, that's quite a freeing experience and allows you to have so much more clarity in your decision making and so much more confidence in what you do. And I think that there's so many sort of little snippets there which are probably quite hard to bring together in one succinct sort of sentence. But humility and having the ability to say, I can't cope, is actually such a freeing process, and that's been really good for me.
It also shows unbelievable self-awareness and strength to be able to admit that, it's easier to bury your head in the sand and continue as you are. It's way harder to lift your head up, have a condor moment, and really assess what you're doing, and then going, actually, I need some help here.
100%. And if I can assist people, that's one of the places I usually start in developing junior leaders within the military, because we're all human, and most of the time when we've got to make a decision, it has implications if you get them wrong. So having the ability to really just take that moment, and if you're unsure, ask, is a really positive thing.
One of the phrases that I like a lot is, if there's doubt, then there's no doubt. Like, if you're not sure about something, ask, get it clarified, because the worst thing you can do is make an assumption and then get it wrong, Easy to do is difficult to say, difficult to do in practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we double click then on your jiu-jitsu career? What started you off on that? What brought you to going, okay, I'm ready, let's stick some pajamas on and go for it?
Two things started it. One is the person I'm staring at right now. You started yours a few years before me, and to be fair, it's all you spoke about. And I was like, oh God, I'm going to have to, if I can join in this conversation, I'm going to have to understand what is he on about, first of all. So that was one marker. And actually, I sort of make that in jest a little bit, but I could see a difference that it made in you in just how you carried yourself. That when you know someone really well and they have a slight change in how they do things for the better, you really notice it. So that was definitely one of them. And the second one, which has a more practical kind of approach to it, is that I went on the Royal Marines Close Combat Instructors course, and there was myself and another gentleman by the name of Barry Mayers, who is a judo black belt and jiu-jitsu black belt. Now, this course, there are 3 strands to it, and we went on the first one, and it was very evident that I was very good at the tactical situation and understanding what it is, and I could listen very well, and I could teach back the techniques. However, I had no idea when someone grabbed me what I was supposed to do, other than using the white belt terminology, was sort of spaz out a little bit and try and use a bit of athleticism. And I was basically a fish out of water. Someone grabbed hold of me. I was like, I actually don't know what I'm supposed to do here. I have no idea. And that felt quite vulnerable. And I do then think back to times where that could have gone really wrong. So since that course, I started the week after that course. And I remember sitting at the end of the course with Baz in the cookhouse, and he said, you still want to be alive in 10 years, right? And I was like, yeah. And he said, well, why don't you be alive and be a black belt in jiu-jitsu as well? And I was like, that sounds like a really good idea. I'll do that. And I literally, the week after that course, I started jiu-jitsu. I started that day, and subsequently I've been on the 2 following Close Combat Instructors courses. Baz and I have both been on, and we're the only 2 people in the army to ever complete all of those 3 courses. So quite an achievement from someone who didn't really know what was going on at the start, and kind of trying to look ahead at Baz for a bit of direction when it came to that kind of those scenarios, to then being one of 2 people of hundreds of thousands over the decades. And I'm one of those people that have been able to do it, and jiu-jitsu has helped me in doing that.
So you talked then a little bit about the vulnerability of starting jiu-jitsu, and when someone gets a hold of you, that panic of, I don't have a clue what's going on here. What else has jiu-jitsu taught you?
It's a real, I take out the coaching element because that's me giving to others, and just talk about myself for a second. It's the only thing that I can do physically, mentally, combination of all the above, that I can solely focus on that thing at that moment in time. Now, I like going for a run. Don't mind lifting a few weights. I can watch a film. I can do all of these things, but my mind can wander in any direction at any given moment in time. And in jiu-jitsu, once I'm on the mats for those 90 minutes, I'm on the mats for 90 minutes. I'm not anywhere else. And whether that's because if you think about something else for a split second, someone's going to choke you out, maybe so. That's probably one of the things. But I find it so engaging because of the combination of the physical and mental and the ever-changing situation that's going on in front of you that you have to dial in. You have to dial in to understand what's going on, and in order to progress through that sort of sport in whatever journey that looks like for you. And that is the most valuable tool which I've taken from it, and that there are many. But being present at that moment in time, there is nothing else that gives me that. That's been shared a few times by other people, and you know, you might have a similar experience to that as well, amongst others.
It certainly is for me. It doesn't matter what you've got going on at home, at work. The only thing that matters is the right here, right now. I talk about being more like your dog. Your dog doesn't care what's happened before, doesn't care what's going to happen in the future. It's just like, oh, we're going for a walk. This is the best thing ever. And jiu-jitsu pulls me into the here and now more so than anything else I've experienced. Is being present, being in the moment, is that something that doesn't come naturally?
Well, I'd say it's not only does it not come naturally, it's almost impossible for me. And you know, it's not through being distracted easily. You know, I don't just zoom out of the room when people are talking as such. Oh, I certainly don't do it on purpose. But it doesn't come natural to me. I am always thinking about what's next. I'm a forward thinker. I'm a planner. I'm a very much the right word, where I assess what's just happened. You know, and an overthinker on scenarios which were 10 years ago. You know, I'm back and forth in my mind through different situations and scenarios. So that sense of presence is so calming in chaos, which is, you know, we kind of talked about it before, is, you know, someone is, you know, I know you're only training, but, you know, in reality that someone is trying to choke you or break a limb, but yet you're so calm in that moment. And you have to be calm in that moment in order to make the right decision. And again, that crossover to my job right now is so powerful. It's so powerful. I actually took a lesson on the basics of jiu-jitsu, or the basics of grappling, should I say, for the permanent staff where I am now. And the title of the lesson was Drowning on Land, Calm Under Pressure. And it's literally that. You know, you feel like you're drowning, but I need you to be calm so that you can make the correct decision. And the crossover that has to military personnel, when we look at operations, I mean, you couldn't get anything else that's more closely linked than those short few words.
So just touching on there, the military training, how has the military physical preparedness changed over your career, and where do you see its future?
Yeah. Oof, it's a big topic. This is a big topic. Try and keep the answers not as brief as possible, but I probably could talk about it for about an hour. When we joined at the same time pretty much, and we went through the same establishment. Our experience of physical training, which led us to pass out of our respective training into our respective cap badges, was aerobic development. Can you run and can you carry things over a long distance, both at speed? There was no consideration to any strength component, flexibility, mobility, power, or any other component of fitness that you could possibly name, or derivatives of. It was aerobic capacity. And there is a saying, the army, you know, it's sort of, it marches everywhere. I get it. Now, that was also my experience probably around about the first 10 years of my army career. It's very much on your feet, move from A to B, and back to A, and then we'll continue up the alphabet we go. Now, in more recent years, and since my transfer into the PT Corps, there has been much more of a science-based approach, and we've got universities involved, University of Chichester, S&C specialists within UK Strength and Conditioning Association, to really dissect what it is that we do as a role and what the many different roles that the Army provide, and what it is that we need to do to not only be good at our job now, but can we continue to have that soldier in play for another 10 years? And that's really key, because in 2015, it was about £3 million paid in compensation alone for overuse injuries. That's just compensation. That's not even for medical care or anything else like that. It was just compensation for overuse injuries, which could have been prevented through a structured training program. So how it looks now, we were over at this side in aerobic capacity. And let's say the opposite of that is, just purely strength. We're somewhere centered right now. We hit dedicated strength lessons. We track everyone's 5 rep maxes, and we use percentage based off just the basic power lifts. Do bodybuilding style work as sort of subsequent training based off those lifts. We hit power, we hit anaerobic capacity and aerobic capacity. Ultimately, people still need to be able to pick up their kit, put it on their back, and move from A to B. So that requires you to have an aerobic capacity. However, just as I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's not just about the here and now. We're trying to make this soldier, who we might have a Private Smith, I still need Warrant Officer Smith to be fit and healthy in 15, 20 years' time. And that's what it is now. It's more of a foresight into looking after people so that they don't just perform today, they can perform in a decade.
I definitely see a benefit to this longevity piece. Talking about jiu-jitsu, and you spent more time there talking about the psychological benefits of that calm under pressure. Is the way that the military's physical training, is it incorporating enough of that psychological training as well, and that resiliency and that mindset things that is probably the more valuable bit that you've certainly gathered over the last 20 odd years?
Probably not. And I try and take off what might be considered the old school hat of me of a little bit of I've served nearly 2 decades in the army now, and I joined the Parachute Regiment, which was very much, it's all go all of the time. And it's all about fitness, and you have to have this, you have to have that, and the mental, you have to have the mental capacity for when the chips are down, you keep going. Probably isn't enough of that now, and I do notice that because I work at a training establishment now, so I deal with the younger population that are in the army for the most part, apart from the permanent staff. But as a cohort of people of about 500 private soldiers or sappers, mental resilience within those people is a limiting factor to their physical capacity. They give up mentally before they give up physically, and it's a frustration. I'm not entirely sure what the answer is to solve it, and I'm not entirely sure what the answer is of why they got there in the first place. I think it's really easy for us to call it PlayStation generation and this, that, and the rest of it. You could also counteract that argument with they have so much information, they do know what good looks like now. So training programs, diet and nutrition, you can download everything for free. So it's really easy to just say, oh, well, they're on a computer all day. However, using the computer in the right way might give you the information that we never had. So it's really difficult. It's really difficult to understand why that is, that sort of generational change. And I know that is a very generalized statement when I say it as well, because there are good people out there. The biggest difference I could say, and the most way that I could sum this up, is it's very obvious when someone has a high level of mental resilience now. It's very obvious who those people are. Whereas it used to be, most people had that, and it was very obvious when people didn't have it. So that is a 180. People stand out for being good now, and that was never the case in my experience of training. People stood out if they weren't up to the standard, because everyone was at the standard. Obviously, as a private soldier, I was told 2 things: be fit and be on time. And I was like, cool, got it. I can do that. You'll get told everything when you get there. I'm like, okay, cool, got it. And that was it. Be fit, be on time. And what we have now is an element of people who are just, they're on time, but they perhaps lack the ability to perform when they get there.
Is competency linked to your physical ability?
Not in all cases, no. I lean that way because of my experience. Twofold of my experience in the army is that, first of all, joining the cat badge that I did, your physical capacity was tested on a daily basis and tested through recognised assessments, which needed to be, it was no question, you are going to pass that. It's not like I don't fancy it today. And I then transferred into my job now of the Royal Army Physical Training Corps. So is Whether that's my problem or not, I'm not too sure. But I do lean towards, if you're in the military, there should be a sense of pride whereby you keep yourself fit year round because you are being paid to do so year round. Now, obviously, if you're going to put people in a cohort, someone is going to be first and someone is going to be last. If you put them in a foot race, just as a simple example, but as long as the person who does come in last is at the standard or exceeds it, then I have no issues with that whatsoever. That's natural. You know, people who run in the Olympics, they're all fast. Someone comes first, someone comes last. That's natural. But what I need people to be is I need people to have the sense of pride, understand their own deficiencies, and take action as a trained soldier and as an adult, because I can only guide them for so long. I see them for, in reality, such a short period of time in their military career. So a sense of pride and ownership for their own responsibility and their own assessment of themselves is key. And I would say is a deficiency as a generalised statement that we probably have in 2026 in the Army.
So I'm a massive fan of systems. I don't like relying on memory because mine barely exists at the best of times. And what I have found is by maintaining a standard of physical performance throughout my adult life, that it has now freed me up a lot of mental bandwidth that I would otherwise have spent on not feeling as physically capable, not feeling as ready, as well, as able as I have done. And I do think that there is a disservice to yourself if you are worried about your physical fitness, your physical form, your ability to perform when you need to. I think there is this underlying level of anxiety that can't go away until you have mastered that.
Literally, that is it. And I was going to call myself lucky that I've never felt that, but actually, and there's a few things I would like to just address here, but I just want to address the fact that I was going to say that I was lucky that I had that. I'm not lucky. I worked hard, and people probably don't realise how hard it is to make things look easy. Like, I'll go and do a 10-miler, for example. You make it look easy. It's easy for you. It's easy for me because I train really hard. So it's hard to make it look easy, is the first thing I'll say on that. But I've never had to worry about that. My, going on, say, promotion courses or things of that nature, I'm not worried about passing the standard. My only thing is, am I going to win or not? Like, that's it. I don't care what the pass mark is. It's like, I know it doesn't matter. Am I going to win? That's it. My ambition to win. And if we, you can put that in a sporting context. I've probably progressed quicker than most in jiu-jitsu because I arrived fit and strong. So I just needed to learn jiu-jitsu. Whereas some people turn up having not done any physical, and I applaud them for this, by the way. It's just an incredible sense of bravery, but they turn up without any physical capacity in a strength or endurance basis. They have to work on that and that, as well as jiu-jitsu. You are in control of those other elements. And in the military, you are in control of your body. Being in a place where you have to make a decision, if you can do that at a heart rate of 110 as opposed to 190, you're probably going to make a better decision at 110 as opposed to 190. And I think that there is a lot to be said for the additional benefits of physical training, not just in your ability to pass assessments, because everyone should be able to pass an assessment. All we're doing there is, this is the start line. Where it actually matters is, can you make the right decisions in a high pressured environment whilst you're carrying all your kit, whilst the chips might be down, you may not have slept, you may not have eaten, it might be incredibly hot, it might be incredibly cold, and all of those are going to impact your physical condition. And the more you can mitigate those, the better your cognitive ability is going to be. And I take pride in that for myself.
Something that you've just said there has really resonated with me from a parenting standpoint, because especially when your kids are young, lack of sleep, which is in of itself, you can see why it's used by ne'er-do-wells as a torture treatment, because it is horrendous. So you get this lack of sleep, you've got no manual to this living, breathing human, and you're like, well, what am I meant to do with this? And how have you found that through your training through the military, through jiu-jitsu, and just your experience through life, how has that shaped your philosophy on parenting and being a dad?
It's changed through the years, and as with anything, you probably get things wrong before you get them right. You know, I was a relatively young dad to start off with my firstborn. But one thing I never worry about is, can I play football for 4 hours with my kids? And then after that, can we go swimming? And can we do this? And can we do that? But my physical ability within that is what it is. But I think my ability now to deal with like a sense of tiredness and frustration, and know that it's not the end of the world. Like for me, for when they wake up in the evening, having go press the reset button, I do think it stands you in great stead to be able to take on a sense of responsibility for when things are perhaps not going too well, and that's when it matters. You know, it's all great when everyone's eating an ice cream or the sun's out and we're playing on the beach, but that's not the reality most of the time. Most of the time, it's going wrong because someone's hanging off a light shade, someone's trying to jump on the TV, and someone's not slept in 4 days. So your ability to try to deal with that situation is is greatly improved when you realise, you know what, no one's actually shooting at me, and I can always sleep tomorrow if I have to. So that's okay. Don't get me wrong, don't get it right all the time. Sometimes, yeah, you get it wrong, but I think as a generalised statement, my ability to assess the bigger picture is one of my strengths as a father.
And is that directly linked to the experiences that you've gone through? Or is that just an inherent thing that you have within you as?
Yeah, I don't think it's linked to my experiences. I think I just have a sense of protective nature around me. Whether that was heightened through through the military and being given a sense of responsibility to look after others, I'm not sure. I think I just have it in me. I don't think that the army's taught me a great deal or anything else, or I don't think it's massively shaped my parenting style. I think I just have a sense of immense pride of being a father, immense pride of wanting to protect and provide for my children. I think most parents have that. I believe that mine is, it's just heightened. It feels like the right thing to do. I feel like I was always going to be a dad. I can be a dad. I can be a good dad as well. I think it's just been within me.
I have heard a few people talk about the difference between being a great man and being a good man. So a great man, you would think of like Winston Churchill and fill in the blank, these people that have achieved greatness. But to achieve greatness, I think, and I'm happy to be wrong, but I think that you have neglected areas of your life. I think it's harder to be a good man, as in to have complete balance across all the different aspects of your life, than it is to be a great man. To be great at something, to my mind, thinks of achieving something in isolation. You've achieved greatness in X, but to be good, you have achieved a high standard at all the different strings that are being pulled in that direction. I think it's harder to be a good man than it is to be a great man.
It's really interesting. I haven't really thought about that in that way before. What it does make me think of, and I saw this not too long ago, and it sort of made me chuckle a little bit, because I thought, I can imagine what each kid would say about me, just knowing their personalities, and you might be able to apply this to yours as well, is that one day your kids will be sat across from a stranger or a person that you don't know, and they will describe who you are. What will they say? And I thought, that's really powerful. I thought, God, what are they going to say? And then I had a bit of humour within it, so I thought, I know what Brooke would say. And I thought, oh God, I know what Dylan would say. And then you kind of just have a bit of humour within that sort of context with knowing the personalities of your kids. But when you take out the humour of it and just actually think about how powerful that statement is, of how your kids are going to describe you to someone that you don't know. If something was the experience that you're going to give them as a little human may not define their lives, but it's going to have a huge impact on them. And you're going to be able to shape so much of them as a personality and guide them to being who that they want to be and who they're comfortable with. And what a sense of responsibility that is. You know, we briefly touched on sense of responsibility before and responsibility for others, but responsibility to your own, it's a different level of responsibility. It's a different sense of achievement almost.
Have you found leadership at home easier or more challenging than leadership in a military setting?
It's more challenging. Because I'm just dad. I don't know what I'm talking about. I ain't got a clue, have I? Basically, because I'm just a dad. Funny. So Dylan comes to jiu-jitsu with me sometimes, and I teach the teens class, and it's the only time where he will listen to me on the mats, like truly listen to me as well, because he sees other children listening to me. So I'm trying to teach something and tell him how it works and why it works and and then giving him a little games to explore it and he's engaged with me. And I come out and I try and tell him something about the class, and he's like, "You want about? Would you know?" You know, he's one of those. So it's kind of and you don't get that so much in the army. It's kind of a bit more direct and authoritarian. Once you understand that you have to flick the switch, and having the ability to flick the switch actually is probably the most important thing. Understanding that there is a work mode and there's a dad mode and there's a teaching mode and there's just a friend mode and whatever else, you know, and having the ability to flick that switch so that you can interact with people on their level is a really powerful tool. None more so when you're dealing with people in a work context that you're not particularly happy with, and then dealing with children at home that you might not be happy with. You have to approach those differently.
I like to think of it like a dial, you know, like dimmer switch on a set of fancy lights. You're just turning it up and then back down again, and it's never a static, like, you can never be the exact same expression of you at all times. You know, you're still you, obviously, but it's just how much are you giving it to that relevant time. And I think jiu-jitsu has taught that for me, is there is fartlek, that speed play, that ramp it up, slow it down, you know. I think there's so many different carryovers for how do I need to hold myself, how do I need to conduct myself in this given situation, with this number of constraints, with this environment, with these people. That's the flexibility, like you say, to come to mould to the environment that you're in.
100%. The adaptation to understand what is required at that time is a real mature having that, and you have to go through those experiences to know that, though, and you have to get it wrong to get it right, and sometimes you get it wrong a few times before you get it right. But as long as we can build over that over time and develop our understanding and be humble enough to say that we got it wrong and how we might do it again in the future differently, is still a real powerful tool. It's up there with one of the most powerful things that you can have as a human, I would say.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Benji, before we wrap this up, is there anything that we haven't covered that you think we should? Obviously, we've known each other for a long time. We could do this for hours, and I think we should maybe run this as a bit of a series as we kind of progress. But is there anything else that you want to cover for this very first?
I think for the first one, we've covered the wave tops of a few different areas. But yeah, we've known each other now, 14 years. And within that time, we've been through a fair few things. And I think it'd be great to dive into the memories of those, how we dealt with those at the time and what we were actually thinking, and how we look back at it with our brain now into that situation and that scenario, and would we do anything different? And that'd be really interesting to do. I think for the first one, that'll do us there.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I think it's very, as long as you don't live in the past and hold yourself in that place, I don't think there's a lot of benefit to that. But I feel a lot of benefit in that reflection of, let's take yourself back to that let's analyse it, review it, and then learn from it. There's always stuff that you can learn and do better, and you're never going to nail every situation. But as long as you're doing it with a bit, like you said right at the very start, be in charge of your ego. This is about learning from it, not beating yourself up, not holding yourself in that place. But right, what happened? What occurred? How did I react? How did I behave? And then learning from that. And I'll be quite honest, I spent the first half of my life, letting myself down. Just constant bad decision. And it was only my 20s where I started to go, actually, you've got to start being who your kids want you to be and need you to be. And, you know, it took me a long time. I'm not the sharpest tool in the box, but eventually I kind of get there and people see the you now. I go, you've always had your like shit squared away. You're like, hang on, no. This hasn't always been like this. You got to work hard to be lucky, like you said earlier.
100%, mate. It's a really easy measure in a physical capacity. It's a really easy measure because it's either time or it's weighted or it's something that you can see progression, regression, this and the rest of it from an academic, or even more nuanced than that is how you deal with certain situations, scenarios, and how you can verbalize your thoughts and feelings. I mean, how do you measure that? Really, that's a really difficult one to go into. But it's such an interesting topic of how we've kind of got to that point, really, and how do you measure and how do you assess that you've kind of got better at that? It's really interesting.
Yeah, it is. Right, let's make a plan to make a plan then, my friend. And I just want to say thank you. I've known you for a long time, and you've been a consistent inspiration, and what you've achieved is fantastic from the early days when I first met you, and what you're doing is brilliant, and you're an excellent dad. You're very, very thoughtful, very present, and your desire to do the right thing is an honour to be your friend. So thank you.
No better compliment. Thank you.
All right, we'll leave it there, and we'll make a plan to do another one. Benjamin, thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you, Benjamin. Bye-bye.